Welcome to the Wellness Hub podcast, a show dedicated to uncovering the future of healthy living. Each week, we aim to bring you content that supports your personal health journey through insightful conversations with amazing guests. We explore various topics ranging from healthy eating, technology, fitness, mindfulness, and more. Now let's join our host, Drew Munro, co-founder and CEO of UpMeals, a Vancouver-based food tech startup on a mission to make healthy meals accessible through technology.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Hub podcast. And as always, we're thrilled to have you with us for yet another edition of Wellness. This is episode 11 of the Wellness Hub, and it feels like these first 10 episodes just flew by. We've interviewed 10 amazing guests so far, ranging from trailblazing entrepreneurs to chefs to fitness experts to mindfulness coaches and more. We've tackled conversations ranging from entrepreneurial highs and lows to overcoming adversity as a refugee to Canada to even harnessing the power of your own breath to overcome anxiety and stress. I wanted to take this opportunity to check in with you and see how we're doing. If there are any topics that you'd like to see more of or less of in our show, please comment and let us know. And at the same time, if there are any amazing individuals out there that you feel we should be talking to on this program, we want to hear about them too. So as always, we hope that you find these conversations valuable and insightful on your own wellness journey. Tonight, we're connecting with another amazing entrepreneur who forged her own business from exploring natural remedies to help heal those closest to her. In doing so, she found her passion and she's been creating waves with her unique brand and products ever since. The natural health product sector has exploded over the last couple of years, and it's no surprise. After this past year especially, we're all looking for ways to promote wellness of mind, body, and spirit. This growing need has paved the way for wellness trailblazers like our special guest this evening. We're going to talk about her unique journey to becoming the CEO of her own brand, where she draws her inspirations from, and what advice she has to anyone daring to take that first step to creating a business themselves. As we discuss these important topics, a reminder, please comment your questions on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, or wherever you're watching. We will be answering audience questions all throughout the show. So without further ado, please welcome our special guest this evening, the co-founder and CEO of Kindred Cultures, Lyndsay Scott. Lyndsay, welcome to the Wellness Hub.
Hi, Drew. Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing.
Awesome. And I want to dive right in here because I'm so excited to talk about your business. And, as someone operating in the health and wellness space today, tell me about your relationship with food and drink. When did you start to see it as something that was more than just fuel and something that could heal, that you have a passion for?
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I grew up in my mom's garden and spent my entire life surrounded by growing things and real food and, a mom who was really concerned about making us, something that was real and made from natural products. And so I think it was instilled in me in an early age that there's a distinctly important connection between the things that we put in our body and the way that we feel and the way that we're connected to our environment. And I think that theme has really carried through my entire life, and ending up in a food business feels like a really natural progression.
Yeah, and you're so fortunate to have that experience growing up because so many people don't. I full disclosure, I didn't. I mean, I didn't have that connection to food. I grew up eating, the processed things and all the things that really we shouldn't be eating, and I didn't get that connection until so much later. And to have it instilled at such a young age is what a blessing that is, and how much of a guiding source that is. That's fantastic. And talk to me about the idea for Kindred Cultures, your business. Like, what nudged you and what was the direction for starting this business?
Yeah. When my son was very young, he started to have all sorts of health issues. We were dealing with eczema, we were dealing with food intolerances and allergies, and he was a sick baby. And I thought there has to be something that we can do to really help him thrive better. And so particularly with the eczema point, it became a baby with bleeding cheeks all winter long. And that's just not something that you can live with as a mother. And in and out of doctors. And we ended up working with our naturopath, who was like, this is an internal problem. This is an imbalance in his body. And so let's start with probiotics. And I was interested to find a naturally bioavailable form of probiotics, particularly a live probiotic. And so we started experimenting with kefir, and out of a need for it to be non-dairy and out of a need for it to go into a baby who did not like bubbles, we needed to find a way to adapt something that would suit his needs. And so in our kitchen at home, we came up with this really yummy thing that the baby would drink. And in 72 hours, we saw distinct health benefits. His face cleared up. He slept through the night. And any parent who's ever gone through a child who won't sleep for a year understands that first night when they sleep through the night changes everything. And whatever made that happen, we're going to do that again. And that's really where our business was born from.
Unbelievable. And so this is sort of almost where you couldn't find a solution with traditional medicine, and you had to look into a natural source. And just maybe explain for our listeners here who might not know what water kefir is, maybe just explain what that is and why it's important.
Yeah. So water kefir is a naturally fermented non-dairy probiotic. So you can think of it as a cousin to kombucha, where you're working with a natural SCOBY mother, a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. But different from kombucha, you have a different microbial composition. So in this case, we've got lots of lactobacilli, things that you're thinking of consuming through yogurt or through a dairy-based product. But with our colony, we're able to ferment in a non-dairy solution. And then we blend with organic fruits and botanicals. And that's what gives us the really delicious flavor that's packed with all of the probiotics that naturally occur from our fermentation process.
Unbelievable. And full disclosure, trying your products was the first time in my entire life that I tried it. It was a totally new and amazing experience. And I just want everybody to be able to experience that same feeling. So, we're going to talk a lot more about the products kind of later in the show, but that was a great overview. And I want to talk a little bit about the journey to creating the product. So you went on a 6-month expedition through Thailand, Sri Lanka, and India. Talk to me about how that helped shape the work you're doing with Kindred today.
Yeah, that was such an amazing experience. And I feel like it was a transformational experience in my life, because you cannot go around the world and not see the world that you live in really differently. And particularly for me, growing up in suburban America, and then all of a sudden ending up in like rural India, riding 3rd-class buses and trains because we wanted to see the opposite of our life. And as we're doing that, food is such an incredibly integral part of all of our cultures. And particularly when we got to India, it's just so important. Like, what are you eating? How are you taking care of yourself? And we were finding that people were recommending, like, you need to eat curd as you're moving through the country. At the time, I wasn't a vegan, but I was vegetarian while I was there. And so it was like, curd, what is this thing? They're like, oh, it's this naturally fermented yogurt. We make it locally, so you consume it as you're moving around, and that's going to help your microbiome be able to keep up with, I guess that's the technical term for it. At the time, they were like, this will make sure that you don't get sick.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, yeah, we definitely need that.
I'll take it. Where is it? Yeah.
And also it was delicious. It was like, I'm used to yogurt out of a box from Safeway in the States. And then I'm eating this stuff and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but like, let's do it. And I think it was maybe the piece that hardwired like a further connection about like what's going on inside of our body is directly impacted by what we're putting in. And I think it allowed me to be open-minded enough when we were dealing with this issue with my son to think back on these experiences, throughout my life where you're like, maybe it really is about what's happening internally and like how we're feeding ourselves and feeding this internal universe that kind of actually runs the whole joint.
Right. Yeah. And I want to talk, you referenced something earlier about, you were referencing different types of probiotics. You mentioned this is sort of like a cousin of kombucha. And like so in 2021, especially, here in Vancouver, you cannot cross a street without seeing somebody selling, kombucha or talking about it. So
Yeah.
what are some of the unique benefits of water kefir? Like why would you encourage somebody in our audience listening to add it to their diets and benefit their lives?
Yeah, you bet. So the most important differentiator between kombucha and kefir is going to be the probiotic diversity that you're getting. And so in kombucha, you're going to get some strains and you're going to get some acetobacters and some of these really great things that are helping break down food. And in water kefir, you're going to get 11, at least for ours specifically that we've tested, 11 strains of beneficial bacteria that are specifically working to support gut health. And in the details, we're talking about metabolic function, nutritional extraction from your food, and like proper regular digestion and movement through your body. And then they're also supporting your immune system by helping generate T cells, which are kind of the frontline defensemen of our immune systems. And in the case of my son, that was in particular the help that we needed. It was actually like an autoimmune function issue. And so as we were trying different probiotics, the term probiotic is a gigantic umbrella for hundreds of species that can live in there. And over the course of the last really like 30 years, as analysis and research has been done in this space, we're finding out that the microbial diversity that we introduce ourselves to is distinctly related to the health outcomes that we're looking for. And it's not necessarily those high concentrations, 75 billion CFU of one species. That will do some function. But when you have 75 species and a billion of each of those, now you're talking about a holistically balanced ecosystem that can do its work for your body.
And that's what you just said is super important, because I feel like, being a health oriented business, there's this tightrope of how you're marketing your products, and companies sometimes are stretching the benefits and what you can do. I mean, I know, for example, you go to a health store and what you just said, like whether this has 50 billion or 75 billion or 200 billion, probiotics, and it's ranked by price, and people automatically think, oh, more is better and more expensive is better. But that's not necessarily true in the sense of how it will impact your body. So talk to me about, what is that tightrope walk of, health claims been like navigating for you and your business at Kindred Cultures?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are compliance regulations around the term probiotic, and most of the health claims that you could potentially make on a product. And so when we were considering being able to call ourselves a probiotic, we actually needed to reach out to partners, lab partners, and have some testing for us. So we reached out to the National Research Council of Canada and asked them if they'd be interested in helping us understand, the colony that we're working with. And it was actually the first time that they had studied a non-dairy probiotic in their lab. And so I thought, obviously this puts us in a category that we don't know a ton about yet. Let's go out and find out as much as we can. And so we specifically wanted to study what species were available. And that is what allows us to make a health claim that we have a probiotic beverage, because we have a probiotic that is confirmed by Health Canada in our beverage. And I think that in the world of wellness, I mean, exactly what you said, there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation, or just confusion about what exactly do I need to get good results. And often the answer is, your body will tell you, which can be a little bit of a complicated thing to understand. But if you're looking at including a healthy variety of foods that have a whole bunch of excellent functions, then I think you start to, create an environment where it's easier for you to monitor what you're doing and say like, oh yeah, I'm going to try this and see how it does for me, because every solution doesn't fit every body. Every body is different.
And you made a jump. And when I talk to you now, as we have this interview and we're having this conversation, you being this leader of this brand, it seems so effortless for you. It seems like, oh, we just made it and then we started selling it and now we have this great brand. But like I want to just demonstrate for our listeners here, like you went from essentially looking for a way to, soothe your child and help your child heal and sleep through the night, to basically being the CEO of a growing health brand. Like, there's a lot in there, right? So like, talk to me about that journey from you going from there to where you are now. What obstacles did you run into?
Oh boy.
Could probably be another show. I know when I ask.
Yeah, we could talk that all day. But I think the most distinct change for me was that when I started this business, I really had this humble concept that this is something that I can do on the side with my kids. It's just something that I felt a genuine obligation to, if this helps my son this much, can it help somebody else this much? Can it change somebody else's whole life? If it's the case, then I need to go find out, kind of what that is. And my husband and family have been tremendously supportive of that journey. And so as we, went out to the farmer's market, and I was like, hi, this is the little bottle that I make. And like, do you want to try it? And like, oh, you're going to give me $5. Like, I'm so excited. And it just had this like tremendously personally fulfilling element. And then it's in, you're working 7 days a week, the side gig with your kids. This is commercial production. And then it was, I think, in that moment that we realized that we had to decide if this was what we really wanted to go forward with. Is this the gamble that we're ready to take all the way? And when we sat down and looked at the market research and determined, yes, it was, that's when the real obstacles showed up. Because now it's not like, if it works, that's going to be great. It's like, this is going to work because I'm going to nail myself to the wall over it. And so how are we going to make sure that we have enough money? How are we going to assess our financials all the time? How are we going to break into the market? Those were the really complex things. And I think the most recent has been a growth obstacle, which is we went out and we're so excited and we found market. We found all these amazing people who really want to buy our product and they're so supportive. And we've got retailers that are supportive. And now we can't find a kitchen that's big enough. Now, we can't find, you have to be able to find a space that you can grow in. And it took us almost 18 months of searching all over the Lower Mainland, talking to everybody that we knew, until this perfect space finally came up. And in that 18 months, if it would have happened 18 months ago, we would have had a whole nother set of problems. But the fact that it's happening now, it's almost like, feels like you get the incubation period that you need to tackle the obstacle when it comes to you, if you're constantly, trying to move toward a goal, and that obstacle is like a milestone along the way. And so I think it's been a really amazing journey. I think entrepreneurship in and of itself is a journey in self-awareness. And I think I might be an actually completely different person than I was 3 years ago when I decided to start this company, but definitely in a good way.
Yeah. And that's, I want to unpack that a little bit, because I love two things that you both said. I love hearing that almost every entrepreneur has that, like, are we doing this sort of a moment, right? And I love hearing that, like, yes moment, right? That yes story, because it's just so inspiring to a lot of people. And we'll talk about that a little bit later for anyone that might be on that fence, right? But you mentioned entrepreneurship. It's a journey. It's one of the greatest learning experiences that literally any human can go on, with all the ups and downs. So you mentioned that you feel like a different person. What have you learned about yourself on a personal level, like responding to these incredible challenges that you're facing growing this business?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were 3 questions that I had to really hold myself to, not BS answers, really, really real answers, the ugly kind that you don't like very much, and it was, what are the obstacles that hold me back? What are the things that motivate me? and what is my real reward mechanism. Because it's so easy to get into weird funks in entrepreneurship. We spend a lot of time alone. We spend a lot of time talking to ourselves. You know, I have a joke that I'm a CFO and a CEO at the same time. And so I just argue with myself all day long. Spend the money, don't spend the money, spend the money, don't spend the money. And when you're the only person that you have to justify to, that echo chamber can be really disorienting. But I think that, you know, at least for me, with the guideposts of, you know, those 3 questions allowed me to hold a little truer to the true course, not the course that I necessarily felt that day.
And like you mentioned that you can put on that CFO hat and that CEO, because I know founders and CEOs, they don't like those 3 questions that you just asked. CFOs love them, and founders, not so much. Let's talk about vision. Let's talk about growth. Yeah. But you know, I want to ask you a question too, and I you know, myself included, a lot of entrepreneurs feel this. Did you feel, as you were growing this, did you feel this, you know, what they call in entrepreneurial circles as imposter syndrome? Did you ever feel that? And how did you deal with that and overcome that?
Yeah. Oh, imposter syndrome is like the gremlin that sits in the room with you all day long. And when something goes wrong, it just like rears up like, told you.
You sure about that? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You sure? You're so confident. And I remember I was very fortunate to have some early conversations with Tara Bosch, and she nailed that one for me, where she was like, don't let the imposter syndrome get you, because she's like, you know, we're running this totally amazing company, and it still comes around with me, this concept that like, who are you to do it? You know, like, who are you to be the boss here? But I think tried to treat it as like, you know, this is a part of the journey too, right? This is my little devil on one shoulder that's just making sure that like, you're sure? You're really sure? Okay. Right. And when I try to treat it as like it being part of the process, I think I can manage it a little bit better, but it gets the best of me some days.
Yeah, of course. And I appreciate your honesty. That's a great way of looking at it, sort of almost like embracing it and saying like, you know what, it's going to be there as we grow. We're doing new and exciting things every day. Sometimes I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to embrace it and know that that's actually helping me become better, and being more self-aware is a brilliant response to that little devil, as you say, which creeps up for all of us. You know, you've got this. Now I want to talk about a great question for CEOs and founders. What does the future hold for this great brand and this new and emerging market and product? What does it hold in the next, say, 5 years for Kindred Cultures?
Yeah, it's so exciting being in an emergent product category and being part of the consumer education and consumer market growth of something that people are like, wait, what do you make? I really enjoy that kind of eye-opening experience that we have with consumers really frequently. And being on that bleeding edge of the front of an emergent market also means that it's really important for us to, you know, keep focused on what we're doing and make sure that our tack in growth is really correct. And so as we're tackling that concept, we're trying to go for our dreams, right? I want everyone in North America to have an opportunity to try a product like mine. I'd like it to be our product. I'd like to show the breadth and diversity of, you know, the probiotic category and fermented foods, you know, by offering something that is so tasty you can hardly believe that it's good for you. That's what I'd like to do.
Amazing. This is a great time for me to check in. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Lyndsay Scott, the co-founder and CEO of Kindred Cultures. We're talking about her amazing water kefir and all of the amazing work that she's done to build her business. And Lyndsay, this is a great time. If people are interested in trying your products, where can they do that? Where are you currently stocked?
Absolutely. So you can find us at Whole Foods here in British Columbia. We also work with Choices Market and Urban Fare and Nature's Fair, Spud.ca, Legends Hall, BC Local Route. We could go on and on. We're very fortunate to have an amazing cohort of people that carry our products and help send it out to people all over BC right now.
Amazing. And you know, I want to ask you now something we talked about earlier in the show. We talked about that, are we doing this moment, which is so critical. So what advice would you have for people that are sort of like flirting with this idea of starting their own business and have something they believe in, but just they're on that fence?
I think there's 3 things that I wish I had done a little bit earlier in my business. The first one was write a real business plan, like the kind that makes you uncomfortable and nervous and definitely shows you that there's a whole bunch of things that you don't know. But just go in there and start, clawing away at it. Be really comfortable with your numbers, even when they're bad, or they're not where you want them to be, right? You've got to be realistic about the financial opportunity. And if it's not feasible, what are you going to do, right? It doesn't mean it's the end. It just means that there's clearly something that has to be different. And then get a mentor. God, having somebody to have a sounding board who really understands where you're at, even when you don't understand where you're at in your business. I think that's really important and really helpful.
Amazing. And this is such great advice for our listeners tuning in. And I want to talk about something else, which is important for you. We've been talking a lot about healing others and how all the amazing things your company is doing, but you're a busy professional, you're a mother, you got a lot on the go. So I want to know, what do you do for yourself to make sure that you are finding time to unwind, recharge, and bring your best self to the business?
That is a tough one.
I know. And entrepreneurs are like nothing, but you see the bad result of that, right? So let's talk about it. I'd love to know.
Yeah, burnout cycles are not something that I'm unfamiliar with, and I have certainly seen myself, work myself straight into a wall, and then you're like, oh God, what did I do? Which is why meditation became my goal for this year. It is, I think, actually one of the hardest things I've ever done is sit still quietly with a clear mind for 10 minutes. I can't do it. I've practiced for months, but I'm going to keep practicing because I've heard that helps a lot with clarity and vision. And then otherwise I'm outdoors, right? I'm out with the kids. We're out with the dog. We're going for a hike. I'm really fortunate to have, a mother-in-law that lives on Savory Island, so we can go escape and spend some time with her. And I think for me, it's all about getting fresh air and getting headspace. But I still never sit down.
You got to find the time when you can. So good for all of the listeners that can't sit still, like myself included. There are ways that you can still kind of relax. So thank you for sharing that. We have a couple questions coming in from Instagram now. These are from our listeners. First question. So apart from eczema, are there any other testimonies from customers about things that your beverage has helped them with or healed?
Absolutely. So especially back in the farmers market days when I had an opportunity to chat with every single person who consumed our product, we heard an amazing plethora of testimony about consumer health. So people that are dealing with chronic digestive disease like IBS, IBD, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, these things that are really difficult to live with and very uncomfortable. Kefir has a number of different beneficial bacteria that can help ameliorate the symptoms of having to live with these diseases that are, it's just the way that their bodies are, right? It's incurable. We also hear a lot about good digestive health, right? I feel lighter, I feel cleaner, I feel like everything is working well. We can have some really unsexy conversations in this area, but we hear it over and over again that, this makes me feel like my body runs well. We hear some things about it helps support weight loss for people that are transitioning their diets, and particularly people who are transitioning off of high calorie or high sugar juices or sodas. They're able to make a replacement with a beverage like ours and reduce those consumption habits significantly. And I think that's one of my favorite ones, because you're really helping support someone move from an unhealthy lifestyle to a really healthy lifestyle. And I think that's a huge win.
Wow, incredible! And if you're not sold on trying water kefir, I hope this long list of benefits, this amazing conversation we're having right here with Lyndsay Scott, has convinced you to try it in lieu of your next kombucha trip. Try something different and try something new, and all these great retailers that she listed. We have another question from Instagram coming in. I'm actually curious about this too. Where did the name Kindred Cultures from, and how does that tie into your company's vision?
Yeah. Kindred Cultures came from the idea that we're literally making something that's born from diversity, and its real key to function and wellness is diversity. And so if we're thinking about the way that we are culturing a product and the way that it connects us to one another, we're all related, right? We're all kindred. And so putting those two pieces together felt like a really beautiful way to speak to a lot of the values that we hold within our company around diversity and inclusion and having open conversations about difficult topics. We've had a lot of those this week, actually, right? And over the last years that we've been in business. But I think we have a unique opportunity to tie in this clear call to action around inclusivity into the very mission statement of our business. Diversity on the inside reflects the diversity around us.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much for that explanation and that wonderful overview of your business, the amazing work that you're doing, your amazing journey. I'm going to ask you a standard question here on the Wellness Hub. Our conversations are always different, but one question is always the same. And I want to know, what is your go-to meal?
Curry.
I know what your go-to beverage is, but your go-to meal, I got to know.
A curry is my comfort food. And in particular, our favorite meal around the house is kotu roti. So you take day-old curry and day-old roti breads and you chop them up together, kind of like an Indian stir fry. And you never go wrong. It's so tasty.
Wow. Okay. You taught me something on that one. That's amazing. I'm Googling that immediately after this interview. Yeah. Lyndsay, this has been inspiring. Where can people go to learn more about you and Kindred Cultures and all the great work that you're doing?
Yeah, so you can always go to kindredcultures.ca and check out our website and learn more about all of our products and the work that we're doing. And then you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Kindred Cultures.
Fantastic. Lyndsay, thank you so much for joining us on the Wellness Hub and sharing your amazing entrepreneurial story. I'm so grateful that we got to share this with our listeners, and it's been an honor talking to you tonight.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's always great to catch up with you, and it was so nice to chat. Thank
you so much. Take care. Wow. How inspiring was Lyndsy's story? I'm in just constant amazement at the entrepreneurial spirit that we get to showcase right here every single week on the Wellness Hub. I am of the belief that life grants you a handful of these pivotal moments in your life, much like the one Lyndsay had with her son. And it's up to us, however, how we respond to those moments and what actions we take that ultimately determines the course of our lives and the trajectory of our lives and our goals and our passion. And I hope that Lyndsay's journey inspired you to think carefully about not letting these moments pass you by due to fear, due to self-doubt, due to this little devil we call imposter syndrome. Make no mistake, the journey of an entrepreneur is not an easy one, but it's also not one of regret. And which would you rather say that you did in your later years? So I ask you today, what's the last moment you can remember where life presented you with an opportunity to push yourself and fling yourself into the unknown? And what's stopping you from pursuing it or taking that first step? I encourage all of you to check out and support Lyndsay and her business, Kindred Cultures, to try their healing, delicious beverages whenever you can. You'll be so glad you did. Thank you for tuning in tonight. If you'd like to see more great conversations like this, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe or follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, or LinkedIn at UpMeals. We'll see you next Wednesday evening right here on the Wellness Hub for another great conversation. I'm Drew Munro. Until then, take care and be well.